Vancouver City Council meeting for Tuesday, June the 13th, 2023. This council meeting is being convened by electronic means as authorized under Part 14 of the Procedure Bylaw of the City of Vancouver Electronic Meetings. As such, council members and the public may participate in person or by electronic means. If a council member attending by electronic means loses connection during the voting process, team members are available to get you back online quickly while the voting process is suspended. The team members' contact information has been circulated to you. Video of council council members speaking, presentations, and vote results will be projected on the live stream when available. Council members are reminded that in accordance with section 14.13 of the procedure bylaw, members must enable their video to confirm quorum. Is anyone on video too? Okay. Okay, plan for the day. Any comments on agenda items can be sent to council using the web form on the city's website. The link to that form will be tweeted out on @VanCityClerk. I also want to note the City of Vancouver's longstanding commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion, including the utmost respect for all genders. I remind council that when addressing speakers and the city's team members, we will avoid using gendered honorifics and will instead refer to the person by first and last name, role, or title. Today, we have 3 administrative items: in-camera motion, adoption of minutes, and matters adopted on consent, 1 presentation, 1 communication, 4 reports, and 12 referral reports. Referral report 5 has been withdrawn. Oh, these things are double-sided. You know, you'd think after a while we'd figure this one. Well, not we. I'll use I. Thanks, Rosemary. Okay, so in case of an emergency, and we need to evacuate the building, I'd like to direct your attention to the exits. There are 2 exits beyond the glass doors, just back there. So if the glass doors are obstructed, please direct your attention to the 4 exits over here. Walk, don't run, and please do not use the elevator. I'd also like to highlight that at the end of the hallway, there is a defibrillator in case we need it. And I also want to acknowledge that we're hosting today's council meeting on the unceded territories of the Musqueam, the Squamish, and the Tsleil-Waututh First Nations. And I do want to thank them for their generosity and their hospitality and the love and the care that they show the land that we get to live, work, and play on. And I think it's very important for all of us to be intentional and take time to unlearn what we've learned over the course of our lives and learn the true history of what's happened on these lands, because that way we can really have true reconciliation and build a future, a very prosperous future together. I also want to recognize the immense and amazing contributions of our team members throughout the City of Vancouver. They work incredibly hard with purpose and passion and a deep love for the city, and so proud to be one of your teammates, and you guys are incredible. The last thing I do want to acknowledge, and it is actually quite bittersweet, on the sweet side, the Denver Nuggets, won their first championship in 47 years, and it gives long-suffering Canucks fans a bit of hope that things are possible. So congratulations to all the fans of the Nuggets. And the bitter part is, unfortunately, early this morning, there was a mass shooting during these celebrations, and there were at least nine victims. And it's really sad, actually devastating to see that this occur. And so our thoughts and our hearts go out to all the families and friends of the victims and the Denver community. So with that, I'm going to go back to the plan of the day. Do you have to go through the whole thing again, or can I? Oh, roll call. Where are we? Oh, yeah, that's the last thing. Sorry, I skipped that. So, clerk, may we please have a roll call?
Mayor Sim is in the chair. Councillor Carr. Councillor Kubiak.
Present.
Not present. Councillor Dominato. Councillor Bly. Councillor Boyle.
Rosemary is Councillor Kirby Young. Could you hear me? I said present.
Councillor Kubiak, I hear you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Fry. Councillor Montague. Councillor Klassen.
Present.
Councillor Meisner.
Present.
And Councillor Zhou.
Present.
You have quorum, Mayor Sim.
To move adoption, Councillor Carr, seconded by Councillor Joe. Thank you. All those in favor say yay. All those opposed say nay. Great, the motion carries unanimously. Minutes 2 are from the council meeting following the Standing Committee on Policy and Strategic Priorities meeting on May the 31st, 2023. Are there any corrections to the minutes? No. Would someone like to move adoption? Great. Councillor Meisner, seconded by Councillor Montague. All those in favor say yay. All those opposed say nay. Great, the motion carries unanimously. Minutes 3 are from the Auditor General Committee meeting on June the 1st, 2023. Are there any corrections to the minutes? No. Would someone like to move adoption? Great, Councillor Dominato, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Blythe, thank you. All those in favor say yay.
Yay.
All those opposed say nay. Great, the motion carries unanimously. Okay, matters adopted on consent. Council will now consider matters adopted on consent. We have communication 1, reports 1 to 4, and referral reports 1 to 4 and 6 to 13 on the consent agenda for council's consideration. Council may adopt the recommendations for communications 1, reports 1 to 4, and referral reports 1 to 4 and 6 to 13 on consent. Does any member wish to hold any of these items for debate or team members? And we have Councillor Meisner on the queue.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd like to hold referral report 13 for discussion, please.
Okay, give me 1 sec here. Okay, so that's referral report 13 by Councillor Meisner. Councillor Joe.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd like to hold communication 1, appointment of council liaison for civic agencies.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So that's communication 1 held by Councillor Joe. Okay, let's see where we are here. Does any member wish to declare a conflict of interest on the consent item? No? Okay. Give me 1 sec here. Sorry. Oh. And okay, so we have reports 1 through 4 and referral reports 1 to 4 and 6 to 12 for the consent approval. And so that has been moved for adoption by Councillor Carr, seconded by Councillor Montague. All those in favor say yay. Okay. All those opposed say nay. Great, the motion carries unanimously. So let me just figure this out here. Okay, so the following have been approved on consent. Report number 1, plumbing and administrative amendments to the Vancouver Building Bylaw, Waterworks Bylaw, and Bylaw Notice Enforcement Bylaw. Number 2, directions report consideration of modification to conditions of approval 1616 to 1698 West Georgia Street, CD-1 812. Number 3, Auditor General Committee Recommendations Transmitter Report. And number 4, Business License Hearing Panel, September to December 2023. Referral Report number 1, simplifying development permit requirements and alleviating sewer infrastructure issues. Rezoning, number 2, rezoning 2596 to 2660 East 41st Avenue. Number 3, rezoning 3581 West 30th Avenue. Number 4, CD-1 rezoning 2001 to 2025 West 41st Avenue and 5683 to 5687 Maple Street. Number 5 was withdrawn. Number 6, miscellaneous amendments concerning various CD-1 bylaws. Number 7, rezoning 5650 to 5690 Blenheim Street. Number 8, rezoning 5526 to 5592 Granville Street and 1498 West 39th Avenue. Number 9, rezoning 3539 Hull Street. Number 10, 550 to 606 East King Edward Avenue. Number 11, CD-1 rezoning 1961 to 1995 East Broadway and 2465 Semlin Drive. And number 12, CD-1 rezoning 618 West 32nd Avenue. Great. So, wow, let there be light. This is great. Apologize for one sec. So, basically just follow the presentation. Yeah, okay. I'm always trying to overthink these things. Thank you very much. Okay, so presentation. We have one presentation today, a permitting and licensing update. Our team members from Development, Buildings, and Licensing are here to provide a presentation.
Good morning. Good morning, Mayor and Council. Andrew Law, General Manager, Development, Buildings, and Licensing. We are here today to provide an update on the status of improvements to the permitting and licensing program with a focus on some key achievements and work underway. So for discussion today, we'll be touching on some key improvements over the last 6 months, work we are doing to simplify the city's land development and regulatory framework, our focus on customer service initiatives, improvement to specific building and development permit streams, how we're improving the applicant experience via digital technology, and then we'll take a look at key next steps. I'd like to just take a moment to acknowledge the support for this project out of the City Manager's Office and the coordination across all of the departments that support the permitting and licensing program and our efforts to create alignment on the many changes that are needed. I'd also like to thank our industry partners who offered their time and contributed to help inform this work. So I'll touch on some of the key improvements over the last 6 months. The first one was the elimination and simplification of approximately 682 engineering services and DBL permit conditions that we anticipate will reduce review times by 30%. We also signed a contract with Archistar to automate permit application reviews. This is our first step towards fully automated plan checking. We simplified business licensing by streamlining licensing types from 600 to 88. We also implemented an online business licensing pilot for home-based businesses so applicants can apply, pay, and track their license applications online. We conducted industry engagement and customer information sessions across a broad range of our applicants. We completed customer service training for all DBL staff. We've also spent a large amount of time building the foundation for the transformational work that you won't see here today, but will start benefiting applicants in the near future. Our general prioritization to doing this work over the past 6 months has been to identify opportunities where we can make the most impact for the customer. We're carving off discrete components of the system to deliver improvement. We're working within the constraints of departmental staff capacity. We're sequencing the work program logically and using a prioritization framework to deliver value quickly. And at this point, I would like to turn the presentation over to Teresa O'Donnell, who's going to speak to the work around simplification of our land development policy and regulations.
Thanks. Good morning, Mayor and Council. Pleasure to be with you here with you today. This has been a pet project of mine, and I know it is one of the councils too, is to simplify our regulatory framework. So are you doing slides? Yeah. So, and you all have heard this, we've heard this. There's way too many regulations and bulletins and policies and guidelines and just too many. It's very confusing to applicants. It's confusing to the public. It's confusing to the council and to staff. It's what actually dictates what can happen on a piece of property. So we are committed to streamlining that. We've heard it, we know it slows the development process. We know it adds cost. If nothing more than just time and kind of wading through all the things, we know it adds time and cost. And what we also know is many of these guidelines and bulletins and things are decades old, and a lot of them just really do not have relevance to the urban context that Vancouver is today. So we know that they're just not relevant. You'll see at 11, 13 referrals today. You know, when you open page 2 of those case reports, you'll sometimes see 20, 25 policies that apply to this zoning case. It's just untenable at this point. So and we know that historically, when we've added new policy, we haven't gotten cleared out the old policy. We haven't done a true up to see what is really no longer relevant. So we're doing business a different way now. So what we're doing to address this now is we finally have a documents library, and we've identified all of them. We know all of them, right? We know where they are. We know what's in bulletins, what's in guidelines, what's in policy, what's in plans. We've looked at all that. A lot of them we're not even going to have to delve very far into to know that they're no longer relevant. So we will be, starting this fall, we will be bringing those policies, guidelines, bulletins for you to start to sunset, and so that we can simplify our framework. We will be creating more consistent regulations now and going forward. So next week, we'll give you another briefing on missing middle. So not only are we adding that as an opportunity for new build, we're collapsing the 9 RS zones. So this will be our go-forward approach, where we're cleaning things up as we go along. We'll be simplifying those regulations. We're collapsing the 9 zones. I think we're getting rid of 9 bulletins and 8 or 9 guidelines along with those when we collapse those zones. So there will be a lot more transparency in our regulations. Folks will understand what's happening. And then, of course, as we try to move more to pre-zoning to simplify the regulatory processes, we know we need some charter amendments. The council was very kind to us in allowing us to go forward, and those concepts have been submitted to the province now, and we're working our way through that. So we think in the future we will have much more flexibility to do this faster. But in terms of just highlighting the key work that's underway right now, the missing middle multiplex zoning, we'll be briefing council on Monday. We'll start our final engagement with the builders, and we'll be bringing you those amendments to council in the fall. We are going through a complete rewrite of our tree protection ordinances to be a lot quicker, a lot more clear, less discretion. And we'll also add in there an ability for applicants to do a payment in lieu for trees that they want to remove, where they couldn't in the past. So that'll be awesome. We're also working, both Dan's group and Jason's group are working on the design guidelines for multifamily housing. So I know we've heard concerns from this council and prior councils about the size of bedrooms and whether or not there's daylight or borrowed daylight. Those will be cleaned up. We're also harmonizing our guidelines with those of the province for childcare. That will clear up a lot of confusion about which set of guidelines you have to meet. Dan and his group are working very hard on looking at the below market rental housing work. We know in the past some of our MERPs haven't been able to go forward just because of the timing of when those rents set and when they reset. So it's stalled in, I think about 12 or 15 projects from going forward. So we're going to clean that up and bring it to council again in the fall. Simplifying FSR exclusions. This is a huge amount of work. It doesn't sound, but it's the very technical detail of sifting through these plans that Jason and John Greer have to go through their staffs on each of these plans. That's going to reduce quite a bit of complexity. And then finally, we're looking at our traffic impact and traffic management studies to get those requirements much more clear and will really speed things up. So we think we're going to see a lot of improvement in just these few things. And I think that's all we're highlighting today. So with that, I'll turn it over to Corey.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. My name is Corey O'Cal. I'm the Director of Permitting Services, and today I'll be going over the customer service work we've been doing, along with the work we're doing in our low-density housing and renovation streams. So just to start with customer service, what we've been hearing from our customers is staff and customers are undergoing a culture shift with technology. The customers still want the ability to speak with staff when they have questions. City processes and requirements can be difficult to understand, and digitization has created some inequities between tech-savvy applicants and those who prefer traditional methods. So how we've started to address those issues, applicants are now able to seek staff advice prior to application. Applicants now able to schedule in-person meetings with staff at the services center. We've conducted a variety of information and education sessions for the applicants, and we've completed customer service training for all of DBL staff. We do continue to hear that sprinkler reviews are complicated and are taking too long. And after implementing 14 of the 16 recommendations from the sprinkler review, we didn't achieve the anticipated outcomes we had hoped. So we're now looking at a risk-based approach while relying more on our industry partners. So just a little bit about the education and engaging applicants that we've done. So in response to Council's request for more information on how we're using the services center space, we've started to educate and engage applicants through information sessions. We held a recruitment session on April 22nd, which resulted in us being able to fill a number of vacancies in the department. We promoted both our May 11th residential renovation session and our May 16th commercial renovation session through direct email and a digital campaign across the city's social media channels. A combination of 14 social posts and stories reached more than 46,130 people. We had just under 600 views for the registration link for the 2 information sessions and over 700 views for the career information session link. All sessions were fully subscribed with wait lists, and we're looking at conducting more of those sessions in the early fall. Next, I'll speak to the improvements to specific building and development permit streams, and we'll start with low-density housing. So in our low-density housing, what we've been hearing from our customers is permitting is a shared responsibility between both the city and the applicants. The city's requirements and regulations can be difficult to understand. Our reviews are taking too long and are too detailed. And to speed up permit times, the city should support applicants through the process. And to address those concerns, we've been developing tools to help applicants understand requirements and the application process. We've implemented risk-based reviews, reducing the number of items the city checks, which speeds up the review process. We're implementing technology to provide customers with self-serve options to submit and manage their permits. And we're consolidating 9 RS residential zones into 1. So as a result of the risk-based reviews that we've started to do in our low-density housing stream, we've reduced our plan review times by 80%. This slide's showing the number of items we used to check on low-density plans versus the number of items we check now, having reduced that number by 64% with the risk-based reviews. This takes time as it's a huge shift for staff, and much of this is overcoming the staff fear about doing a perfect job. But the results indicate that we can make significant improvements through this approach, and we'll be scaling this to other areas and other permitting streams. We've been kept closely in touch with the inspections team and haven't noticed any design issues out in the field when they've gone to do their inspections. So this is an example of a low-density housing application. So it's a standalone laneway example in the Sunset neighborhood. So as you can see by this, it's a shared responsibility between the staff time and the applicant time. So the staff time's reflected in the gray and the applicant time in the blue. The intake and plan review is getting all the documents and ensuring a complete application. And we hope to reduce that significantly through digitization and simplification of policy to approximately 1 to 2 days. And then we can see with the 133-day, that's our response waiting for applicants to get back to us on the deficiency lists that are sent out. The next example that we have is we've taken one of our fastest applicants and worked out the model for that. So we're exploring what makes up the applicant time to respond to deficiencies in booking inspections, because even though this is one of our fastest applicants, we still have a 99-day timeline for the applicant to get back to us once we've sent the deficiency list out. So we know that much of this time is spent fully completing the application, and we've been observing that many applicants are now pausing on their applications to see how the multiplex regulations are going to impact their projects. So as a result of that, we're expecting that if these permits that are waiting to get issued, our reported timelines on open data will increase significantly if they decide to continue with the permit that they currently have in stream and not switch to the multiplex option. We've also observed that many applicants are waiting quite a significant amount of time to pay their fees. So that could also be a result of waiting to see what's happening with the multiplex. So the next stream I'm going to speak to is renovations. So what we've been hearing from our customers is simple applications processed via the same queue as complex applications. So people that have a real simple application are getting stuck behind the larger complex ones. Takes too long to get a permit for accessibility upgrades. They're not clear on what needs to be included in an application, and reviews take too long and are too detailed. So to address those concerns, we've created a fast-track permit stream, which is called Direct to Inspections, and that can be issued in less than a week. We're identifying accessibility upgrades at submittal and prioritizing them. We're developing tools for applicant to identify requirements, including requirements from city departments and other regulators. And the city is going to shift to a risk-based reviews, targeting a 40% reduction in review times. So like low density and development permits, the process is a shared journey between staff and applicants. This is an example of where we're going to reduce processing times by implementing risk-based reviews, and we expect this to result in 40% reduction in processing time. We're exploring ways to collect payment more efficiently and encourage applicants to pay faster. And by not penalizing applicants for previously unpermitted work, we're reducing the variability in response to deficiencies. The upgrade requirements are what significantly increase variability in processing times. So when the applicant finds that the scope of their project will trigger expensive upgrades, such as a new sewer connection, they may choose to reduce the scope. Creating tools that allow applicants to explore their project and understand the upgrades will allow them to better scope their project in advance and understand all of those costs up front. All of this work will stop the mid-process changes that currently are impacting the timelines in this renovation stream. Our renovation process timelines vary greatly depending on the applicant. So this slide is just an example, and we wanted to share that the renovation processing timelines vary greatly depending on the applicant's motivation and their skill set. So for a designer that is highly skilled, they can have their renovation application in stream and process between 1 to 2 weeks. We then have homeowners that are wanting to do the work on their own. It often takes 6 to 8 weeks. And then often some projects have work without permits, so there isn't, the applicant isn't as eager to get their permit issued, and those we're looking at 10 to 12 plus weeks before those permits are being issued. So the metrics that we're publishing online include all three of these applicant types. This is part of why it's difficult to forecast how long it will take to get your permit. Part of the work we're doing with the digital transformation team is to better understand project scope and applicant attributes so we can more accurately predict how long a permit will take at the start of the process. I will now turn it over to Andrea Law, who's going to speak to our large building stream.
Thanks, Corey. So much of the work under the Permitting and Licensing Improvement Program has focused on some of our less complex permitting processes and the important policy simplification program. With the next few slides, we'll provide an update on the work we've done to address some of the challenges with larger, more complex projects. So the number one thing we've heard internally and externally is that we have too many development permit conditions, and those conditions are too complex. Requiring more detail than is necessary at the development permit stage has a cost impact to applicants, as they need to pay contractors to design these details. We have also been over-leveraging permitting to advance council priorities, and we need to explore other tools to achieve the same outcomes, but that won't hold up permitting. So what we're doing around these challenges is standardizing and simplifying our development permit conditions. We're removing conditions where appropriate. We're committing to more predictable and faster review times, reducing reviews by up to 30%. We're better aligning the city's requirements at the development permit stage with the applicant's design process. And we're also redesigning the prior to letter, which details the conditions, and streamlining the process for applicants to clear conditions more efficiently. As noted, we are making significant strides in eliminating and simplifying the conditions of approval for development permits across engineering and DBL. This slide reflects the shift and anticipated outcomes in support of staff review times, applicant response times, and fewer iterations required to get approval. So these outcomes include a reduction in the total number of conditions at the outset for engineering services, as well as DBL, and where we're eliminating conditions, where we're simplifying conditions, and where we're shifting to a more risk-based review. So ultimately, we anticipate an increase in processing times by 2 to 4 weeks. Fewer conditions will result in faster applicant response times, and the reduction in the number of subsequent review iterations will be cut in half. So in addition, these are some of the key areas of work that will benefit from the streamlining of development permit condition. Many of these sit in our engineering department. So many of you are aware of the rainwater management program. We will be moving all of the DP conditions out of the zoning and development bylaw and into the building bylaw, and we anticipate a reduction in processing time from 56 weeks to 3 weeks, pending a council decision in July. We're also working on off-street parking requirements, the transportation demand management plan, utilities key plan, latecomer agreements, and updating the parking and loading requirements. The significant improvements to the rainwater management plan has been a collaborative approach across teams in DBL, PDS, and engineering. Pending a council decision, we will begin implementing planning to shift this work. Engineering staff will be reporting back in early 2024 on changes to the parking and loading requirements. And while it's not listed here, we know we need to simplify and reduce the number of legal agreements associated with development permits. Staff have initiated a project to optimize legal agreements and have solicited feedback from applicants to support this work. So this slide provides a high-level overview of the current steps in the process. And while this will vary project to project, this is where we expect to see benefits specific to the reduction of DP conditions. Our current focus is to reduce the time the city spends completing our internal reviews. Initially, we are targeting a reduction to a maximum of 10 weeks of staff time. Often these projects are subject to multiple review iterations, which can be attributed to a number of issues, including complex or unclear conditions, a failure to respond to all the conditions in one iteration, as well as design changes midstream to the project. We're also looking more closely at improving the pre-application process to address submission quality, which automation will help to address over time. So I'm now going to shift to the improvements around the applicant experience as it relates to our digital technology program. So our approach with the digital transformation program is to deliver value via iterative releases. Each release will add a new set of improvements on an 8 to 12-week release schedule. Once a core capability is implemented, for example, automated compliance checking, we will evolve that capability. This will include other permit types like multiplex, as well as adding additional regulations. I'm just going to quickly touch on the 4 focus areas and go into them in a bit more detail. So our business license, we'll look at approving licenses through a self-serve portal. Laneway House digital plan reviews is our automated online plan checking. The Laneway project requirement exploration tool is an opportunity to provide a self-serve portal to allow applicants to explore project requirements, feasibility, and submit and track and update their applications. Also be looking at data and analytics to improve our permit and licensing data and metrics. Our first area of focus is business licenses. So this is a snapshot of the customer view. We have created a single online portal to input application, pay and check status, and information where necessary. We have piloted this for home-based businesses, and we are targeting the end of June to turn on this capability for most business license application types. The technology we're using to enable this process can be ported to other processes as well. The second focus area is digital plan reviews. This will be iterative, and the first release will check a number of requirements related to zoning. From there, we'll build additional capabilities with subsequent releases. Over time, this tool will allow us to stop doing components of the review, saving significant staff time. Our goal is to have technology perform all simple checks so staff can focus on the more complex work. As Council is aware, it can be challenging to scale our workforce to respond to increased application volumes. Using this tool to automate plan reviews will allow us to adjust to fluctuating volumes more effectively. Our target launch date is Q1 2024. And if you'll indulge us, we are going to provide just a brief presentation on the product, ArchiStar product.
Welcome to this presentation of the eComply proof of concept for the City of Vancouver with the ArchiStar digital platform. The digitization of regulations and the capacity to review designs quickly and efficiently has significant value outcomes for applicants and city staff. Let's go over how it works. The first thing users can do on this eComply platform is pick a specific site by typing an address or choosing from a map. Once the site is selected, its details are immediately available. Users can easily view our city's policies, regulations, bylaws, and guidelines, collectively termed as rules, are integrated into the platform for easy reference. For this demo, we've digitized a portion of the RS1 zoning rules, which pertain to single detached homes and duplexes. The platform has the capacity to display all rules relevant to a selected site. For additional reference, the platform also conveniently links to original PDFs of the rules located on the Vancouver City website, making it a time-saving tool for both applicants and city staff. Once applicants have completed their design, it's easy to upload digitally onto the platform. The software automatically evaluates the proposed design's compliance against relevant rules. A 3D visualization is generated, which allows users to assess whether the design meets the rules. The platform clearly reports on a pass-fail basis. Let's view an example. Here we are examining building height compliance. The 3D model indicates that the proposed height is 8.62 meters against a limit of 9.5 meters. eComply promptly shows the design height has passed. It's easy to view which have passed in green and which have failed in red. This real-time feedback can reduce lengthy exchanges between designers and staff, shortening design cycles and enhancing design quality. In addition to the online 3D visualization, the eComply digital platform generates a comprehensive PDF report. Users get an overall summary of whether the design has passed or failed, followed by a full report detailing the compliance of each rule. In summary, ArchiStar's eComply is a powerful tool for applicants and city staff. The digitization of the application process streamlines design compliance and enhances transparency in the City of Vancouver development process.
Thanks. An online project exploration tool is the third area of focus for this program. This tool builds on the customer portal created for the business license program and is an example of how we will deploy capabilities to other permit types in support of the customer self-serve journey. This journey's online self-service portal through which applicants will be able to explore project requirements, feasibility, estimate fees, understand the permits that are required documents, and timelines. They will also be able to submit, track, and update their permit application. And it will provide clear requirements upfront, creating greater predictability around costs and timelines. And we're targeting an August 2023 launch for this. Fourth area of focus is data and analytics. This is a snapshot of the dashboard that is under development and will initially roll out for council and staff and can later be made available for the public. This dashboard breaks data out into key stages of the development of the permit processes and provides detailed information on permit elapsed times. It shows staff processing time and applicant processing time separately. It will allow staff and council to track permitting improvements, initiatives, results in real time. And it will help city staff and council prioritize timing and phasing of permitting improvement initiatives. Target launch for this is Q3 of 2023. This data will be automated, which will eliminate a data collection process that is currently manual. So I'm going to touch on just the key next steps before we close out. The focus for our next update to council will include simplifying planning, development, and sustainability development permit conditions. We'll be rationalizing development permit-related policies for council consideration, as Teresa noted. We'll also be providing an update on the great work we're doing to advance a risk-based culture that supports a greater reliance on our industry expertise. We will also be providing an update on the next round of digital transformation. That's the end of the presentation, and we have a team of staff here available to answer any questions. Thank you.
And I'd like to thank all the team members for this presentation and all the work that went behind this to move the permitting process forward, making it faster. I just want to highlight a couple of words and a couple of things I saw before we go to questions. One, I love the fact that we're using the term customers. I also know change management in any organization is incredibly hard. And so what we saw today is absolutely amazing. And I love the fact that, you know, you're talking about not doing a perfect job. That should be celebrated because perfect is the enemy of good and it stops us from doing so many things. And I also saw a bunch of value stream mapping in there, so I was getting all giddy. So I think it's absolutely great. Sorry, I just had to make those comments. You do have a lot of questions here, and we'll start off with Councillor Carr.
Thanks, Mayor. And I've got like 8 questions. Could I move for a second round?
Absolutely. Great.
Great,
All in
thank you.
favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Great.
Thanks. Yeah, also, thank you, staff. That was a great presentation and super exciting. I'll start with my first question, which was you're rewriting the protection of tree bylaws for enabling payment in lieu for trees. My question on this is we have heard from you as staff that it can be as much as $20,000 to replace a mature tree. Are we doing cost recovery in that collection of fee in lieu of retaining a tree or not?
Yeah, that's a great question. We're actually looking at those fees right now to see how we can provide options, but also make sure we're encouraging the behavior that we want. We're breaking down this. I might want to get back to you in a memo because we're looking at our options around fees. It's actually in the ordinance now. Staff don't operationalize it. A lot of people want to use it, but we're also looking at ways that they could maybe plant on other public properties within like a mile radius, and also aligning with the park board because they do have a calculation they use for the replacement. I think it's like the 30 years of benefits that a tree will provide. So that's quite a bit of analysis that But we should probably give you a memo about that.
Good,
Yeah.
depending on the species, because, you know,
But depending on the
cedars
species.
are over 1,000 years old, right?
That's right, exactly.
Okay, yeah, that's good, and I like the idea of getting them to plant it under our guidance. Second question, harmonizing the city of Vancouver requirements around childcare with the province of BC. I think we've had concerns around the access to outdoors. Is that one thing that you're specifically looking at? So we have a direct access to outdoors, which has stopped some childcare projects from going forward. But is that one of the things?
That is one of the things, and it's both our folks and ACCS and the provincial guidelines, so that there's one set of clear requirements for applicants.
Okay, thanks. Third question, culture shift with technology. That was a great term, it's true. I have had developers and applicants, though, talk to me about how much they loved the desk and going in and speaking to, across the street there, and speaking to a person that could help them navigate through. So are we still going to retain the service desk idea for those who really seem to love it?
Yes, and thanks for the question. Absolutely. We have a great space in the services center. I know you visited there. We are looking at a different model. We have moved to an appointment-based model, but we are open for business. If people walk in, we have staff available to help them. We're encouraging people to set up some time with us so we can ensure we have the right people there to respond to their questions. We're also looking at a model to support customers who are dealing with challenging applicants. A lot of our homeowners struggle to navigate our bylaws and regulations, so we're looking at opportunities to have sort of a commercial renovation center day or a residential renovation center day to bring people in and have all the experts across the departments that support permitting there, so that people can get a sort of a fulsome answer and approach to their project. So, yeah.
Great, thank you. You can stay there. The next question's for you too. And I love the comment you made about, my next question is on risk-based reviews and how you said staff are always concerned about doing a perfect job. That's a great attitude to have, actually, in staff. So I know it's a balance in achieving the reduction in times that we want. So you said that we are looking at reducing review times by 80% due to risk-based, especially on risk-based reviews. What are the biggest risks? Like, what are the risks that that take the most time? And if you can give me some examples, some risks that you think we can speed up in terms of the processing of applications.
Yeah, it's a great question. Just in the example that we showed you, at one point, we were looking at 99 different aspects of a review just for a single-family dwelling, and we reduced that down to, I think, 30, somewhere in the 30s. So I think those reviews are just a culmination of reviews over time. So being challenged on a certain aspect of the bylaw and then realizing, okay, we better look at that because if we don't,
And
we'll
I'm
miss it again.
sorry, we're at time.
Maybe we can continue. I'll get back on the list. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Meisner.
Thanks, Mayor. First question is for Teresa. Good morning. Hey, you talked a bit about charter amendments that the city has requested. Do we have a timeline on when we can expect to see those enacted?
I do not. I'm thinking, what I understand is charter amendments usually take about a year. So probably next spring. Given a lot of them have to do with accelerating housing, we're hoping that these might be moved along a little more quickly, but typically it takes about a year.
Okay. Positive reception, though, to...
Oh, yes.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah, very good.
fantastic.
Yep.
Next question is for Corey. Thanks, Teresa. It's about the in-person meetings and appointments. What's the demand been like for those, and do we have enough capacity?
Yeah, thank you for the question. We are filling up for our appointment base, so we allocate about 5 to 6 slots per day for people to come in. And that is often identified by one of our inquiry center officers. If it's a really complex application, when they submit their application through the portal, they can either request an appointment at that time, or if the inquiry center officer identifies it as being complex, they may reach out and ask if they'd like to come in person.
Okay. Actually, on the portal, I have heard from a local builder, pretty active on Twitter, that when they've submitted through the portal, they haven't heard back with an acknowledgement for at least 2 weeks. So I'm just wondering what that process looks like. Is that normal? Is it automated, or is it a manual
So that,
acknowledgement?
sorry, thank you. That would be outside of our current timelines. We're usually getting back to people within 2 days right now. There was a time frame when we were down 5 inquiry center officers. Those positions have now been filled. So they should see a response coming within 2 business days.
Okay, so 2 business days is the target.
Yes.
That's great. And then I think that's actually all my questions. Councillor Carr asked a few, so thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Fry?
Thanks. And thank you. This is super exciting. I know you guys must be really excited about the work that's been going into this and compiling it on. So on there was a slide here about customer service training for all DBL staff. And I'm wondering what are the kind of KPIs for that, or any kind of metrics? What are the outcomes of that kind of customer service approach for staff? Like, how are we measuring success with that approach?
So right now, I think that's a challenge with measuring the metrics on the success of that. We did implement it departmental wide, and everybody had to take part in the training. So we were tracking who had taken and then following up with their managers if they had not. I think that the less feedback we get from the public that's negative often is a reflection of our employees, taking that customer service training and applying it to their day-to-day tasks.
So I guess one of the things that we've heard in the past is like multiple touch points with different departments and inspectors and plan checkers and yada yada yada. And there's variously been kind of conversations around like a concierge kind of model and like one single point to sort of help guide the process. Is that embedded in here somehow in that customer service model, or?
Yeah, so with our transition to electronic plan reviews, we now have one person as a point of contact that will liaise with the customer on their application, as opposed to multiple departments providing them with information and feedback on their applications. So we have streamlined that significantly with electronic plan review.
So that single point of contact will deal with all the other sub-departments and stuff and
Yes, that's correct.
coordinate it. That's fantastic. The other piece that I'm interested in on slide 21, there was a real distinction around the unpermitted stuff and then the more sort of professional designer approach. And so I'm curious how is there an opportunity to better tease out sort of who are the professional designers? And because it seems to me that adds to a lot of the churn is people who are coming in who don't necessarily know what they're doing, and they add a lot more workload to across our departments. Do we have an accreditation kind of program or some kind of?
We don't currently have a program. The savvy applicants tend to find their way through the program faster because they know how to get through the system faster. They know how to submit a complete application. So just by nature of their experience, we find that they're moving through the system faster. What we want to do now is be able to track them as sort of our baseline for how long that process should be taking. And with our current data and analytics, we're not there yet. We'd like to get to a place where we can separate out those experienced applicants from sort of the homeowners who aren't as motivated to get a permit in a specific timeline, or the work without permit who's not motivated at all necessarily. So yeah, that's a big part of the technology piece, will be to separate out those streams. And that'll be part of the customer journey experience so that we can identify who these applicants are.
So, but there's not currently like a separate stream, like amateurs go here, professionals go here.
No, there is not. Yeah, it's just everyone comes in through the same portal, but if you're a good applicant, you know your way through.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Andrea. That's good for me. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councillor Kirby-Young?
Yeah, thanks. And thank you very much for the presentation. I appreciate it. And I really appreciate the acknowledgement around the fact that speed adds costs and delays to housing. I want to kind of delve into the customer service piece a little bit more. And there was comments around recognizing the tech inequity, we're offering in-person meetings. And I'm just wondering in terms of, I know Councilor Meisner touched on this with his questions, why we're not doing that for all services and sort of trying to make appointments more broadly available, because you said 5 to 6 per day. So I'm wondering if we have impediments to doing that. Because I'm thinking, for example, if with a customer service orientation, you have the Apple Store, right? And so you go in the Apple geniuses and they're always there. And the idea is to enable people to be comfortable with their own technology, and then it sort of pays dividends in that way. So can I get a little bit of perspective there? Because I'm just trying to see if we're looking to a much broader approach that across the different types of streams and services that we're going to provide more in-person opportunity to expedite things.
Yeah, so thank you for the question. I like your example of the Apple Store because that is where we would like to get to, is just that model where people can come in and ask questions immediately. We're just not there yet with COVID and shutting down. There's been a big transition with our digital technology as well. We're trying to drive most applicants to go to the online platforms, and once that technology is implemented and sustainable, then we'll look at reinventing the services center a little bit more.
But I guess pushing that a little bit, if it's quicker and faster for somebody to be able to touch base with a human and get a question answered, and it saves the applicant time, it saves staff time, why would we not push to do that more quickly? Because otherwise we're sort of, it sounds like we're just perpetuating, and we're not there yet because we have these constraint issues, but we could alleviate the constraints if we could make that some of that faster and not keep that work backlogged.
Yeah, so they do have the ability to just walk in now. If they do have questions, there's staff available in the services center. Our doors aren't closed, but it has taken some time just to try and get to that new model and figure out how we're going to progress the services center to a more modern approach.
Okay, and are people coming back in? What are we seeing in terms of numbers of people coming in, say, compared to pre-pandemic? Do people know that that option is available? Are we communicating that?
I could pull, so we are tracking everybody that's coming in. I don't have that information, but I can get it for you. But we've seen a significant decrease from over 100 applicants a day coming into the services center. And we're now down to about 10 to 15 maximum in a day.
Okay, do people know that that's available? Do they have to find out, or are we communicating that broadly?
I will verify that. I believe it's available on our website. We've removed the fact that the services center is closed.
Okay, but
Or was
it's a bit
closed.
different saying it's closed and saying, hey, we're open and you can come in. Okay. I'd like to sort of, that would be good to take away and talk more about. I just want to go switch gears a little bit and on the sprinkler example, and you referenced that some of the intended improvements hadn't paid dividends, and so there was a move to more of a risk-based approach, and that I think I'm reflecting correctly that you're finding that there was not sort of significant issues in terms of checks and compliance. So in terms of that learning, are we looking to expand a risk-based approach more broadly, again, across other functions beyond sprinkler? Because we've had so much discussion in this chamber around trust the industry, trust the professional experts, let's not have city staff duplicate and sort of get out of the way, but set very clear guidelines.
Yeah, thank you. That just reflects back to the risk-based approach we're looking at, is that what we can rely more on industry for all streams and not just the sprinkler, but for all of our permitting streams.
Okay, so what does that rollout look like potentially?
We're currently exploring it. We have a project manager that's overseeing the work and is working with the teams to identify those.
Okay, so do we think that we might apply it, for example, to a couple of other streams in the next quarter this year? Are we looking to do it progressively? Like, I'm trying to get a bit of perspective and color around that.
Yeah, so the first stream that we're wanting to apply it to is the sprinkler review stream. That's been an outstanding piece of work for quite some time. So we're hoping to accomplish that by Q4 to roll out a model that is net new for industry. For the other streams, we're working on those as well and anticipate something later this year. So approximately Q4 as well.
So Q4, we might have 1 or 2 streams? Is that what I'm hearing?
So we've already managed to apply it to our low-density housing stream. So right now we're working on renovations, that stream of work. And then we're also, so for commercial and residential. And then we're going to be looking at the sprinkler reviews. So that would be 3 independent streams by Q4.
Okay, thank you.
Great, you're at time. Thank you. Councillor Joe.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Thanks for the team. This is exciting work. Thank you so much. My question is, we heard different opinions from the community. We wait for 15 months. Some people wait for 20 months. what is our current wait time? I still didn't see this from this presentation.
Yeah, thanks for the question. So we will be bringing that information to council in July. We will be providing information on the digital transformation plan as well as the data and analytics dashboard that council will be able to begin using later this year.
Okay, so does that mean we don't even know our current wait time at this moment?
We can find the current wait time, but it's a manual exercise.
Okay. That's actually my second question. So all those process map you have this in this presentation, they are manually tracking, right?
They are.
Yeah. Okay. So that means by the target launch Q3 2023, are we able to pull out all this information electronically?
We are working on a roadmap to get there. It's not going to be live 100% in Q3, but there will be a live dashboard that council will have metrics in real time.
And with the raw data behind the dashboard also available?
Yes.
Okay. The other question is there any plan to provide trainings, the Lean or Six Sigma trainings to other staffs? We don't have to be certified as a black belt or green belt like our mayor has, but is there any plan to provide trainings?
We are exploring lean training specific to sprinkler reviews, and we'll be reporting back on that.
Okay, thanks. And also, it's good to have this digital technology and the analytic functions to support this work. So my question is, when we have all these amazing tools, we need to have a very strong department to support analytics, to use this data information to support decision makings. So is there any plan to create analytic functions to support all this work?
So, Councillor, I can speak to that. So we do within our tech services team have a data and analytics team that is working on this as well. I think you asked a great question about whether we need to expand additional resources or potentially embed those in operating departments like development, building, and licensing. So that's a question that we're going to have to continue to address over time. But we do have a dedicated group of folks within tech services that does data analytics.
So are those people will be the one using these analytics tools in the future, or?
Well, I think the intent is that it's available to all of our operational managers and to council and the public, so it's generally available. So their role is to help kind of establish that and move it forward.
Okay, yeah, thanks. So my only concern is we have these amazing tools. We need to have the person to use that tools. It's not like we have the tools. There we go. We have done everything. No, it is very robust process. We need to provide some resource to support that on an ongoing basis. Okay, thanks. The other question is again related to analytics. So there are different levels of analytics. So starting from the bottom is the prescriptive analytics, and then diagnostic analytics, and then predictive, and then the prescriptive analytics. So the higher the level is, the more complex, but the more value added to the organization. So it looks like we are still at a very bottom level.
Yes.
Yeah, the descriptive. So what is our plan to move to that level so it could provide more value to the end user?
Yeah, so again, thanks for the question. We are very early stages in this program, which is largely a function of our current technology, but we have a great partnership with Technology Services and DBL to evolve the program. I think to answer your question, we will be reporting back to council in July with more detail on the digital transformation program and what that looks like and what the milestones are, as well as a look into the dashboard and getting your feedback on how we can improve that over time.
Okay, thanks. How much time I have here? Okay, 30 seconds. Yeah. So the other question, so I heard there's always additional issue at the last minute, because of the guideline is not very clear. And what is our plan to address that issue?
So thanks for the question. I think that ties back to the work we're doing. We've initiated under development permit conditions. This is sort of the first step in simplifying things. We acknowledge from applicants that sometimes conditions change over time. So yeah, we have acknowledged that. We are addressing that through this program.
Okay, thanks. I have other questions. I'll come back to the queue. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bly.
Thanks very much. And similar to others, thanks so much for this is a tremendous amount of work and clearly laid out in this presentation. I just have a couple of questions that haven't already been asked, and one is related to if you could just summarize ongoing engagement. I've heard really great things about the roundtables and the way industry has sort of been engaged along the process in developing this work plan and the various recommendations, be it renovations, small development applications, or larger ones. How can those same industry partners, stakeholders, perhaps even the roundtables, continue to be engaged as we work through the next year of deliverables in this update?
So yeah, thanks for the question. Yeah, it is critical. We acknowledge that. I think leading up to the pandemic, we were a lot better at engaging with our industry partners. Over time, I think just a function of our just sheer volume of work that we were trying to deal with, we lost that relationship to some degree. So we totally acknowledge that, and I think this is our opportunity to really include them in this process and help them have a sense of ownership over the outcomes as well. So yeah, we're very motivated to continue those discussions.
Okay, so is it fair to say that that's sort of an active objective as we work through this next year?
It has to be ongoing, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just to say, the most recent ones, not pre-pandemic, but just the most
Yeah.
recent in the spring were acknowledged as being really great. And so I
Yeah,
think there's some energy behind that. So that's great. Thank you very much for doing that, of course, critical partners. The second question I have, and so I really see our role at council to work in partnership with staff as we improve this whole permitting issue that we're dealing with. And it's been ongoing, as we all know. Where I'm looking in this presentation is for what council can expect in terms of deliverables. And I see some dates, particularly towards the end of the presentation. I just wonder if there's greater opportunity to provide some timelines to some of the commitments, particularly in the slides where it talks about here's what we heard and here's what we're going to do. And what I'm wondering is like, when are we going to do that? And what can council expect so that we don't get into the weeds? Allow staff to do what you're best in the world at doing, which is working through this process, and allow us to sort of maintain our role as in partners and making sure we're able to deliver on those timelines.
Yeah, thanks. That's a really great point. And yeah, we don't want to overcommit and then not deliver. So it is great feedback, and I think it's something we can take away and provide council with more sort of refined update on where we are with these targets. I think it's, as I talked about, it's a very iterative process. So often we come up against a roadblock, and then we have to reset and try and refigure out what that estimated timeline is. So yeah, we'll take that feedback away and let you know and give you more sort of detailed timelines that you can respond to.
Okay, and maybe I have one more. I said I had two, but I have three questions.
Great.
One of the goals that we have here, and it's aspirational perhaps in some ways, but it's around this 3331, right, as an objective in terms of delivering permitting based on whatever development applications coming in. I wonder in those future updates, if we could have a finer point put on how whatever those actions are that are being outlined in that progressive plan gets us closer to that goal.
Okay.
So in which way and by when, really, I think would be helpful information. Again, ensuring that we stay out of the weeds and allow you to do the work that you need to do, and us be able to track how we're doing in, like right now, right now the by-whens for most of this plan appear to be up until Q1 2024. So then tying that back to 3331 and how much further we're going to be at that point than we are now in more of a aspirational goal would be a helpful insight when we get these further updates.
Great. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Appreciate the feedback.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Councillor Boyle.
Thanks. Most of my questions have been asked, thankfully, and I'll also just say really grateful for the huge amount of work. I'm curious to hear more about the changes briefly mentioned around parking. I don't know who gets to come up for that, but interested, I know council's given direction on on eliminating parking minimums, looking at parking maximums. The language I saw in the report was that staff won't be doing as detailed a review of parking on, I think, on private development. So maybe you can just update me on where that work is at.
Sure. Good morning. Lon Leclerc, General Manager of Engineering Services. When we're looking at what we're doing in terms of our current review of work, one of the areas that we put a lot of effort into was actually reviewing parking plans. And actually what we're talking about is scaling back our review and allowing the responsibility to lie more with the applicant. And so that's similar to many of the risk-based approaches that we're taking, where we're not trying to kind of like do their work for them, but to actually let them do their work. Related to policy on parking minimums and maximums, that's a different exercise. Our teams right now are looking at eliminating parking minimums in the Broadway corridor in certain areas where we're feeling that, similar to the downtown where we've already done it, that it's a low risk outcome if we reduce those minimums, reduce the requirements or eliminate the minimums. But we're also looking at where introducing maximums would be a good idea as well. So that work is underway. It's not part of this, separate from this.
When might we hear back about that work?
Fall.
Okay. Okay. And then related to that, there was another point in the presentation about streamlining or moving away from transportation demand management tools. And I guess I'm then also wondering how that within the permitting streamlining fits with upcoming work around
That does fit with this work, just because what we did, our approach to transportation demand management has been to allow the applicant a lot of different options for how they could reduce parking requirements. It was almost like a smorgasbord, or they could pick from a menu. I can do this, or I could do that, or I could do that. And what we found is that most applicants choose the same things. So it's actually just simplifying and kind of almost turning it more into a requirement, just to get to this parking minimum, this is what you do, as opposed to providing too many options and choice. We thought that was a good idea, but in practice, it's simpler for us to just make simple requirements.
Great. Okay, glad that we tried that and learned from it and are moving forward. Great. That's a really helpful update. Thanks. My only other question on the permitting specifically is I'm curious if there are if any of this work relates to non-market housing, or if there are ways in which it will allow for more staff time on are there benefits for speeding up the non-market housing we also know we need so much of?
So thank you for the question. So we do have our short program, which is evolving. So we do have a program where we do prioritize affordable housing. So yes, that exists, and we're using that program to scale to other permitting types as well. But yes, there is that mechanism available, and it will benefit from all of the work that we're doing here.
Great. That's all I wanted to hear. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Councillor Klassen.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, before I get into sort of other remarks and questions, I just wanted to state, just because there was a comment made about the Vancouver Charter changes and working with the province, so just here for the public record, I know that Minister Kahlon and Premier Eby have been talking about how they've found our collaborative approach here in the city, and hoping that they will take heart that getting some of these changes made to the charter happening sooner or later will help us all, including their objective around increasing the amount of new housing being built. Just with regard to this project, I want to first of all just state outright, I can see how much work has gone under the hood on this one. This has been an incredible cross-department effort, so hats off to all of you. The video was really a nice touch as well today to see that, so thank you very much for all of that. And I also wanted just to note that you've responded to council very well in the sense that we are asking you to take risks, to push the envelope a little bit. Just want to ask about the Archistar implementation set for Q1 24. Do you have a kind of a best guess at how long before you start to see whether it's successful enough and can be pushed into single family and other types of housing?
Yeah, I mean, I can start with that, I think. I think we've seen, so when we originally approached Archistar, we saw a demonstration that kind of blew us away right at the outset, just how quickly they were able to take our rules and digitize them and then create this 3D model. So I think we're very optimistic. I think it's early days. We've just brought them on, so I know the team is already actively working on that. I think we'll probably be better positioned to answer that by end of August, just so we have a sense of what the program looks like and the timeline and the capacity of the team to deliver on this. But yeah, to your point, we will provide you with a better estimate and a better timeline. I just can't do that today.
Thank you very much. Just from an operational standpoint, it feels like that staff time is going to be shifted in very positive ways, freeing up time that might have been used on other processes. How do you envision how some of that staff time could be reallocated?
Yeah, it's a great question, one that we talk about all the time. A lot of the staff time is spent on work that would be better suited to more complex work. It's what they do, it's their day-to-day, but the opportunities are limitless in terms of simplifying this work. And as we get exposed more and more to technology, that becomes more evident. Our timelines alone, there will always be work to do for staff. So using this automated approach, we don't foresee that implicating staff for some time. But yeah, it's going to be a huge shift and a cultural shift, which is what we're really dealing with right now.
Thank you. Just curious, it seems that we're reducing the number of types of zoning, certainly with the RS changes. We have a number of existing community plans that dictate the types of housing, the types of how we can shape and build our communities. But some of those plans are quite dated right now. I'm wondering if there's any sort of thought about how we might start kind of either reviewing those, the ones that are certainly 20 years or more old, that might not be as responsive to the needs of today's communities.
That's a great question, particularly those visions. And I've asked Paula and the team working on Missing Middle to see if we can't be prepared to bring those to council when we bring Missing Middle in the fall to sunset the visions.
Okay, right. And I hear, this might be another question for you, Teresa. I hear sometimes that our requirements around landscaping that sometimes can drag out this sort of finalization of getting a housing construction process completed might be a little bit of overkill. Are we looking at things like that, knowing that once the job is done, somebody could rip out a tree and put, or a bush or a plant or something like that and change it overnight? I'm wondering, because I just hear that frequently from home builders.
Absolutely. We don't, in my opinion, we don't need to be in the business of regulating landscaping, and that's another thing that we'll be bringing to you when we bring the tree ordinance.
Excellent.
Yes.
All right. Thanks. That's my
You're at time. Great. Thank you. Councillor Carr.
Great. Thanks. Oh, Teresa, while you're still there, did you mention that we're getting missing middle housing next week?
You're getting a briefing on a piece of it.
A piece of it. Okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure. I've got some other questions about that, but I'll leave it.
And I think we're giving you a memo today about some of the economic testing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. So back to Andrea, that's where we had left off, which was on the reviewing times reduced by 80% doing your risk-based reviews, around risk-based reviews. I'm really curious about what the risks are, what some of the risks are that are taking the most time. Just give me a couple examples. What are some of the risks that you're looking at that don't take much time, so you can kind of simplify them?
Okay, just a quick, thanks for the question. One thing that comes to mind is staff reviewing staircases internally in homes. So this is something we should be relying on industry. These are manufactured in industry, and staff would be reviewing the rise and the run of a staircase that's leading from a basement to the main floor of a home. Those are things we don't need to be looking at. So it's just a really simple example. But we had over 100 reviews that we were doing, so we had to look at where we need to be focusing our time.
Right, okay, that's good, thank you. Large building stream that you talked about, the goal to leverage council's, I'm just quoting you, the goal is to leverage council's objectives with permitting. So what council objectives are you looking at in terms of simplifying the large building stream?
So thanks for the question. If I understand you correctly, this is really looking at using the permitting tool as a way to advance council policy. I think that was where,
Well, like,
yeah.
you give me an example of a piece of policy that you would be, through permitting, really leveraging regarding large buildings, because that was where it came up.
So a lot of these development permit conditions come out of council policy to improve the built form, to improve all aspects of development, and the permitting is the tool where we can achieve that outcome, and that's what we've used over time.
So, for example, with climate objectives and getting to that near net zero carbon emissions, is that I have heard from some builders that they are, they're struggling with some of the aspects of implementing that in their large buildings.
Yeah, so that would be an example of something that would land as a development permit condition on a development permit, that they would have to demonstrate how they're going to achieve that outcome prior to getting a development permit issued. Okay. So the question is that the right tool? Is there another tool that we could use to achieve that same outcome? I don't have the answer to that, but I think it's an opportunity to explore.
Like Passive House Standard does certification itself too. Anyway, so, okay.
Yeah.
Right. You also talked about eliminating 158 conditions, or 23% of the total on those. Examples of eliminating a condition.
We have examples of conditions that we've... Yeah, I think just very simple things, and I don't want to throw engineering under the bus here, but conditions such as heated towel racks and underground parking for bicycle parking. So things like changing rooms, just really getting into the details of projects where we don't need to be inside of people's homes, inside of people's living spaces, conditions where we really shouldn't be making them a requirement of a permitting.
Wow.
At the end of the day.
Heated towel racks. Okay, that's a really
Sorry, Lon.
Oh, I've had no idea. Okay. Rainwater management. So you're shifting it to the Vancouver building bylaw. Does that refer to green roofs as well? The planting of roofs?
Ultimately, the policy will explore that as well, but yes, that will be part of the presentation to council in July.
Excellent. Oh, July. Good. And I have one last question, so I'm going to get it in. It's great. Teresa, you talked about reducing 9 single-family zones to 1. Are we still calling it single-family?
No, we have a new name, but I don't think we have released our new brand yet. So yes.
You can leave it as, okay?
Okay. All right.
Thanks. Thank you, Mayor.
Great, thank you very much. Councillor Kirby-Young.
I'll pass. Keep us moving. Thanks.
Councillor Joe.
Yeah, thanks. So talking about the wait time, so I can highly relate to my previous experience in healthcare and hospital management. I think I saw a very similar challenge, for a patient waiting for medical service. So my question here is, do we have a standard definition about wait time? How we measure that? When the clock starts, when the clock stops because of the wait time is not out of our control, or when the clock restart again.
So we do have an internal tracking system in our permitting database. So that does, it does trigger when an action starts and stops. The challenge we have is it's not being used consistently across the organization or even departments. So it's really difficult to pull out that data to say this is the actual estimated timeline for this piece of work.
Okay, so I strongly recommend we have a standard definition. We talk about the same language. Otherwise, people comparing apple to orange, it doesn't help us to improve the wait time situation. And we need to publish that definition so the people in the community, they know that as well.
Yeah.
So, because I think, to me, that's the first starting point. Talking about wait time, we need to have a standard definition and then report it. So that's my comments here.
Thank you.
Highly recommend we can consider that. Okay, the other questions, I saw the laneway house plan, very good using that technology and the software. So is there any plan to expand that to other types of housing?
Absolutely. So initially, we are looking at laneway because it is a fairly simple, repeatable permit process. So we want to demonstrate that we can do this in a repeatable fashion, identify where there's opportunities to improve it. It's a less discretionary of all of our permitting programs, so it seemed like a good place to start. But yes, the plan is to then scale that to other permit types.
Okay, thanks, Andrea. So my last question is, I guess when we launch that new software, there will be some communication plan working with our stakeholders in the community, in the development industry, to let them know this is coming and train them how to use that, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect.
They're way ahead of us.
Thank you. That's all my question. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Joe. So clerk, I guess I have to cede the chair to Councillor Fry. Awesome. Okay, so there is no report or recommendations for this item, and before moving on to the next agenda item, I do have a motion that I'd like to bring to the floor. I've submitted this to the clerks, so if we can please bring it up on the screen. Great. So to give you a little bit of context, I do think it's super important that council, as you know, our role is to provide the vision for where we want to go, and then help our team members out with resources to make it happen. So this is, just to be super clear, providing that vision. So we have clear line of sight and goalposts. So the motion is, it's going to be moved by me. We'll get a seconder in a sec, hopefully, but that council adopt a 3331 permit approval framework to help eliminate the city's housing construction backlog, increase the supply of market, non-market, and supportive housing with permit approval time targets as follows. 3 days to approve home renovation permits, including renovations to accommodate mobility and accessibility related challenges. 3 weeks to approve single family home and townhome permits. 3 months to approve permits for professionally designed multifamily and mid-rise projects where existing zoning is already in place. And 1 year to approve permits for a high-rise or large-scale project. And further, that team members be directed to bring forward regular update reports to council based on the 3331 permit approval framework to keep council apprised of progress towards achieving the framework's 3331 permit approval timelines and benchmarks, and for these update reports to be brought forward on a semi-annual basis at a minimum. Great, thank you.
Seconded by Councillor Kirby-Yung, and then we can move over to an amendment queue.
Sure. Awesome.
Main queue, sorry. Anyone to speak to this? Councillor Kirby-Yung.
Yeah, thank you, Acting Mayor. I'm really happy to see this formally brought forward. It's no surprise that we have been speaking for a long time about the importance of simplifying and regulations and expediting housing. We heard from our Director of Planning this morning that delays add cost and complexity, and I'm paraphrasing, but I think fairly accurately to the process, and that the complexity of the regulations and the delays have become untenable. We also had a very robust discussion with respects to delivering more new housing and an increased net number of units better and faster. And this really provides that explicit direction that while we've had lots of conversations about it yet, we haven't formally brought this forward. And I think that we do need to put a stake in the ground in terms of what those timelines are. We have had a lot of conversation around publishing the data about sort of daylighting, similar to daylighting a stream, getting a line of sight into what the current timelines are and what they look like. But what people need, and we hear from industry, whether it's the small individual folks that are renovating a single family home or a large project, is predictability around understanding what the process looks like, but it's also in terms of planning the outcome and the time. And so I think that this is really speaks to the spirit of that, and I'm very happy to support it because we need to make things simpler and faster. It provides so many more opportunities for us to get out of this quagmire, spending time on processing and starting to think about really smart policy that's actually going to deliver the type of housing that we need and responding to a lot of the challenges that are we're seeing in the macro environment with respects to increased inflationary costs, the supply chain issues, et cetera, and the city wants to kind of be part of the solution here. So I think we need to be bold. I really appreciated the updates from staff this morning with respects to digitization. Again, I think we can be bolder there. In putting that out, I've watched a number of those ASP different tech solutions several years ago, and I know staff commented they were blown away about the speed with which they can do things. They can now. It's actually not the technology that slows it down. It's the offline component around getting all of the existing information into the system around what our zoning is and putting in all that data. So when you click on that map and you bring it up and it's got the sort of zoning schedule and the allowable density, all that information is there. So if we streamline our information so we have less that we need to put in the first place, then we can make it faster. So there's going to be a lot of flexibility to staff. I'll sort of conclude by saying how we get there, but council's job is to really say that for this administration, this is a number one priority, is to move housing forward better, faster, and get those units delivered. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Kirby-Young. Councillor Zhou.
Okay, there we go. Okay. Yeah, thanks. I'm also so glad to see this 3331 policy has been adopted in this amendment, which provides really the right direction and target for this very complex issue. In the midst of the housing crisis, expediting the permitting process becomes even more critical. Quickly approving the permits for new housing developments can help address the pressing need for affordable housing options. By reducing the time it takes to obtain the permits, we can accelerate the constructions of the much needed housing units and provide relief to individuals and families facing housing insecurity. Speeding up the permitting process allows developers to respond more efficiently to the demand, increasing the housing supply and potentially stabilizing the housing prices. Additionally, I think a streamlined process could encourage investment in our housing sectors, attracting developers and promoting economic growth. The city's financial situation could also be improved, but with a quicker turnaround time for the permitting process, because we all know the CAC, the DCL, other fees. So it is the policy that we could see positive impact on every single resident in Vancouver. I think by taking this proactive approach to expedite the building permits, we can make significant progress in alleviating the housing crisis and improving the quality of life for our community members. So I really appreciate this amendment being brought forward by the mayor, and I will be certainly in full support of this amendment. Also, I want to really appreciate the fantastic work from the staffing team. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Zhou. Councillor Bly.
Thanks very much. So just to add and not repeat what we've heard, great comments from Councillor Kirby-Young and Councillor Zhou so far, is just to say that thank you to staff for the tremendous work. And I really do feel an energy behind the belief that we can make this better. And I think that might have been wavering in years past. And so really recognizing that by moving this amendment forward, it's creating an aspirational goal, an aspirational vision for all of us to be working in partnership to get there. And really at the end of the day, that's what I see this as. It may feel daunting at times because we're a long ways off from what is outlined in this amendment. And yet without some sort of clear specific goal, it's very difficult to know how progress is made and the effect and impact it's having. So it's great to get this on the record. We know that this was a big piece of the election and the challenges related to permitting that we heard about over the course of the last couple of years. And at the end of the day, we're not going to be able to get there unless we are doing exactly what we've done this morning, which is asking questions, getting updates, and engaging in this and making it a top of mind conversation at every opportunity as we go forward over the next couple of years. So just tremendous gratitude towards staff for all of the efforts of both engaging community and the commitment to this work, and particularly cross-departmental efforts under the leadership of Andrea Law and everybody involved in every department that heads up those departments. So appreciate that and happy to support.
Thanks, Councillor Bly. Councillor Klassen.
First of all, just
sorry, clerks, if we could advance Councillor Klassen, please.
Oh, there. Thank you very much. Thank you. First of all, again, repeating what I said earlier on, this is a really, I think, important place where we've arrived with all the work that staff have taken to get to this place. So I want to just, repeat what I think most of us know, that the cost of housing in any kind of building development is based upon labor, materials, the cost of financing, and of course time. And time is the one piece that's that we have some effect over here at City Hall. So I think that our ability to reduce that time is it really is an important signal that we should be sending. Today's presentation made it clear to us that this really is a two-way street. This is every application is a partnership between the work that City Hall does in addition to what the applicant and how they respond. And they're responsible for their own timing. We were told when we proposed months ago that we would try and do this 3-3-3-1 framework that it wasn't possible by many. But we were hearing today that we're hearing huge shifts, huge reductions in the timing and processing for permitting, thanks to staff's work. And I think that we can get here, and we're of course going to be able to do that by letting staff do what they do best and applying new technology. But I want to again thank them very much, and thank the mayor for bringing the 3-3-3-1 initiative forward. I think we can get there, and this is a great thing to aspire to in the years ahead. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Klassen. Councillor Meisner.
Thank you, Councillor Fry. Yeah, I'd like to also echo my colleagues' gratitude to staff for all the hard work you've done. I know that's a massive project, and I'm very excited about some of the technological innovations, especially the Archistar platform. That looks amazing. I think that's really going to make a massive difference. I mean, our primary focus, as everyone knows, since we've been in office, is to deliver more housing faster. We fully recognize the housing crisis that we're in, and we're doing everything we can to move housing along. And I think this amendment is a really important part of that. Again, as some of the councillors have mentioned, to daylight the progress towards achieving these goals with specific data so we can see how we're doing and how we get there. So I'm very supportive of this motion to make more progress towards our goal of 3-3-3-1 to speed up the delivery of new housing and build a really solid base that we can work from to deliver more housing in Vancouver faster. Once we get this permitting process down to faster wait times for builders and developers to deliver housing, I think we have a really solid base to continue to build our community and ensure that everyone can find a home in Vancouver. So thanks very much for all your work.
Thanks, Councillor Meisner. Next on the queue, Councillor Boyle.
Thanks. I have a question as a point of information through you, Chair, to staff, which is I'm wondering, there's been lots of big picture discussion about this. It's an aspirational goal. Do we think we can actually get to these timelines, or is it just useful as kind of a goal that says be faster?
Councillor, maybe I can take a cut at that on behalf of the team. These are targets. I think they're clearly framed as that. At this stage, we don't have a full pathway to say this is how we can get to each of these targets. But clearly what council, we would interpret this as council setting the bar and we'll continue to work towards these targets and report back, as has been suggested here, in terms of that progress. So, you know,
Totally
yeah.
appreciate that. I have a follow-up question to that, which is I'm wondering if staff anticipate any unintended consequences, and particularly I'm wondering projects that don't fit into these categories, would they be slowed down because of a focus on home renovations and projects that fit into existing zoning? Are we likely to see a longer wait time for more complex projects or larger site projects or non-market projects if there's more effort in speeding up these types of projects?
Thanks through the chair for the question. Again, I think those types of potential unintended consequences would things that we would be bringing back here to council, that if there are trade-off decisions to be made that may not be fully apparent right now, we'll do our best to surface those so we can get council direction on that.
Okay, and we don't need to add that in. That would be the kind of regular update that you would.
We will do that. I think we're cognizant of those types of things. There may be significant policy trade-offs in here as well for council to make in order to enable us to hit these kind of targets. Those would definitely be things that we would bring back.
Okay.
Along those lines.
Okay, appreciate that. So I certainly appreciate hearing from colleagues and staff in the language that this is a goal. I think we all share the goal of speeding up our own processes to deliver more housing. Unsurprisingly, one of my concerns is the impact that this could have on, as I said, projects that aren't listed here. So thinking about non-market and social housing projects in particular, but also larger complex projects like the Jericho lands or big important efforts that are going to be more complicated than here. And hopefully the result is if we speed up these types of projects, we have more staff time for those. But that is one of the unintended consequences I'm conscious of. And the other thing I will name again as a bit of a broken record is that permitting is one piece of our work, but changing zoning is a hugely important piece too. And I note the amendment here says that we'll be looking at a faster permitting timeline where existing zoning is already in place, but our existing zoning is one of the problems in terms of our housing crisis, and we aren't going to solve the problem without changing that existing zoning. So I hope that is equally on our radar and equally a priority for this council. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Boyle. Councillor Carr.
Yeah, thanks, Deputy Mayor. I have some, if possible, points of information through you to staff.
Sure.
Great. So staff, first of all, how close are we to these timelines? I mean, for example, 3 days to approve a home reno permit. Like, where are we at right now in terms of how long it takes to do a home reno, and does it vary according to the types of home renos?
Thanks for the question. Yes, and absolutely it varies depending on the scope of work. So we have, as Corey noted, we do have a direct inspections program, which really looks at a simplified home renovation, which we're processing in 3 days. We are looking to expand the scope of that, but it is challenging, just given the many intricacies of permitting. So yeah, it is possible. It is fairly limited right now, so we are delivering on that, but with a limited scope.
Right. Would it take, for any of these particular goals, and so that's just on the first one, I guess, the second 3 weeks to approve a single-family home or townhouse? Where are we at on single-family homes and townhomes?
Yeah, well, again, it is that partnership. So we are, we are doing everything we can to speed up our end of the review process, but again, we rely on that customer. So I guess in terms of defining what that timeline is, and how quickly we can get our reviews done, and how quickly we can respond back to applicants. So it is, as you've seen with the number of slides we provided, it is a journey. So yeah, it is. I would, yeah, it's difficult to provide sort of an anticipated projection at this time as to whether we can hit that.
Right, right. Would the trade-off in your mind be not doing some other work or would it be the need to hire more staff in order to really focus on hitting these timelines?
So I think this is an interesting question that comes up again and again, and we're really focused on digital technology as much as we possibly can. Ultimately, if we get to a place where we've determined we've done everything we can from a digital lens to simplify and expedite these processes, it may come down to resources. But we're in the process right now. But to your point, yeah, until we're there, it is a really good question.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions. I'll just turn to comments now. You know, first of all, you know, it's to me problematic that we got this 1 hour ago, this amendment or this motion, rather. It's not an amendment. There were no motions to this report. No staff recommendations, that is. Okay, so it was 1 hour ago. I could have maybe asked more questions to staff in the duration of all the other 2 rounds of questions that we had earlier that might have helped me being able to understand the implications of this motion. I believe in evidence-based decision-making. I believe in having information at hand in my mind to know what the pros and cons are of a motion moving forward. I'm hearing from staff that they are, you know, there may be some that they are achieving for very simple renos, for example. They might be able to get there, but you know, I'm not hearing. And I didn't have time to ask a lot of questions, more questions as to what the implications might be to do 3 months for a multifamily or mid-rise project, or 1 year for a high-rise. I mean, there's not very many that I can think of that went through in 1 year. No aspects of the potential around rezoning, or are these just simple procedures. I get that, or simple projects rather. I get that, you know, it's great to have some goals. I don't have confidence that these goals are grounded in the information from the professional staff that we have in this city that can help me understand whether these are good goals or not good goals. They might be popular goals in the public, but are they good goals in terms of governance? You know, I'm not prepared to support this. I'm still deliberating on abstaining because the idea of moving forward with challenging ourselves to achieve something that is definitely in the public interest is good. And these are, I take some comfort in that these are objectives, not requirements. But anyway, a little disappointed here in the process.
Thanks, Councillor Carr, perfectly timed. Over to you, Mayor Sim.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so 7 months ago, we did mention, actually leading up to 7 months ago, mentioned that 3331 was going to be a big plank of our platform. And we choose to go fast, not slow. And I want to thank the team. We have a great team. And make no mistake about it, we are on a journey to build the best city on the planet. It will be hard, and all I can say is, you know, as evidence today, we have the right team that's going to help us get there. Now, I don't think this is an aspirational goal. My personal opinion, it's an achievable goal. And I just look in the history of humans, you know, in no particular order. We achieved flight. We put a person on, or people on the moon. Physically, we conquered the 4-minute mile, and then it came crashing down with everyone else. Flying cars, organ transplant, eradicating polio, 3D printing, and most recently ChatGPT and AI that's transforming the world. And so I actually don't think that this is anywhere close to any of those human achievements. And, you know, when you're building this best city on the planet, guess what? We're going to set some high standards. And I want us to remember what the stakes are here. It's not about 3331. What we are talking about here is giving people the ability to raise families and live in the city that we love. And I think, you know, we're up to that challenge. And so at the end of the day, it's about making it very clear being very transparent, holding ourselves up to a level of accountability, and providing clarity as to where the destination we're driving towards. Because if we don't know where we're driving, how do we drive there? And make no mistake about it, at some point in time, we will hit 3331. And you know what's going to happen? We're going to change the goalpost again, and we're going to make it even faster. And that's what we're building here, a culture of continuous improvement. I'm a big fan of Toyota. They have been on their journey of continuous improvement for over 100 years now. And they don't talk about how a goal is not achievable. They talk about how they're going to get there. And then when they get there, they set a new goal. And that's what we intend to do at the City of Vancouver. So thank you very much. I know we have the right team, and it's our goal to provide the goalposts and then provide you with the resources to get there.
Thanks, Mayor. Clerks, I think seeing no other buddy on the queue, if we could pull up the voting panel, please.
Sorry, I wasn't paying attention. Sorry, because I seated the chair. I wasn't.
And that passes with none in opposition.
Thank you.
Back to you. I reshare the mayor chair.
Mayor chair. Thank you very much, Councillor. Okay, so now we are at the place where the items held for debate. Okay, so the first thing, the next item in the order of the agenda held by Councillor Joe was appointment or communications. Thank you, by the way. Thank you for all of the great work that you do. Really appreciate it. Is communications 1, appointment of council liaisons to civic agencies. Does anyone wish to declare a conflict of interest on this item? Okay, so Councillor Joe, you held this item. You have 5 minutes to ask questions to team members.
Okay, thanks, Mayor. So I'm really honored to be appointed as the council liaison for the Racial, Ethno, Cultural Equity Advisory Committee. I think Councillor Fry also has done a lot of work with different cultural communities. He has established strong connections with them. So I'm really confident that the community will be greatly beneficial from his extensive experience and knowledge. So in fact, I think Councillor Fry and I have collaborated on different communities' engagement initiatives, including the Chinese community and the Black community. So with that, I really hope Councillor Fry could be also added as the council liaison for the Racial and Ethno Cultural Equity Advisory Committee. I think once again, that demonstrates our commitment to collaboration. Thank you. That's all my question here.
Great. Thank you very much, Councillor Joe. Councillor Kirby-Young. Okay. So here, I'm just going to advance you. Apologize for that. Can we please have a seconder? Great. Thank you very much, Councillor Carr. Council, is there any discussion? Okay. Councillor Boyle.
Thanks. I just didn't see an amendment circulated. Or we just want to make sure I'm on the right page here, that the amendment is to add Councillor Fry to the Racial Equity Advisory Committee?
Yeah, sorry, it's not amendment. So I checked with clerk. I think clerk suggests we just do a motion on the floor. So I will ask, I think I checked with clerk. Clerk said we don't need to do that.
Okay.
Are we good?
Yeah, I just want to generally make sure that's still our practice and that we know what we're voting on, but that I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to support it. I just was making sure we have procedures.
Great question. Okay, so we're all clear. Councillor Kirby-Young.
Yeah, I have a follow-up point of procedure, if I could, to you, Chair, or through staff. Just following up on Councillor Boyles, I understand we still do need to email in amendments. Is that not correct? Is that changing? I'm confused.
You're asking.
If you'd like to answer or direct that to the clerks.
Through the chair, the Councillor Joe is moving the recommendations with an added name. So this is not an amendment.
Would really like to question that because I am confused because even when we moved a report with an amendment, we've had to email it in. So what I'm now hearing is that if we do this, we're changing our practice and we can all do that moving forward. We do not have to, we can move a report with language and amendments and we don't have to email it. That's what I'm taking away from what you're saying and I want to reflect back. I'm hearing that correctly?
Councillor Kubiang, yes, it is correct. If it is an amendment to a report that has been moved, it should be emailed to council in advance. In this case, it's a little bit different. Councillor Joe is moving the recommendation with the added language as we've done in the past before, and I'm happy to follow up with a memo if that was helpful.
I'm going to challenge that because when we've had added language, even when we're moving a report and it's included, I'm very confident we've had to email it. So I just feel uncomfortable that we're changing the procedure and then we're setting precedent. And when we're inconsistent, this is what creates challenges procedurally. I'm not comfortable with the response. I'm very comfortable with the amendment and the intention and supporting it. I'm just not comfortable with the procedure.
Okay, so the solution to this, if Councillor Joe, if you can email that with Councillor Fry's name on it, great. Should we take a quick recess of 5 minutes? Good. Okay, so we'll take a recess of 5 minutes. Great, thank you very much. Do we have quorum? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We do not have quorum. Oh, now we do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Rosemary, sorry, clerk, we can get started, can't we? Can we get started? We're good? Okay, great. Oh, it's coming up. Okay, seeing no other questions or comments in the queue, we'll bring it to a vote. Reminder that any council member participating virtually Actually, there's none of us, so we can skip that. Okay, so let's just call it to a vote. Great. Great, and it looks like it passes unanimously. The second item was held by Councillor Meisner, I believe, and it was number 13. Let me just find number 13 here. False Creek North Social Housing Delivery Amendments to the False Creek North Official Development Plan and consequential CD-1 bylaw amendments. So Councillor Meisner, you held this item. You have 5 minutes to ask questions of team members.
Actually, Mayor, I didn't notice it was a referral report as opposed to a report, so I don't need to hold it, unless anyone else has any questions about the referral.
Okay, actually, I have Councillor Kirby-Young on the queue, but I'm assuming that was probably the last queue, wasn't it?
I'm not sure if Councillor Kirby-Young has questions.
Oh. This is like a Benny Hill episode right now. Sorry. Sorry.
No, sorry, Mayor. I was actually on for questions of the last report.
Yeah,
I didn't
no,
realize
it's,
we were voting on the whole thing. I wanted to vote.
We're all having some adventures here.
Do we have an opportunity to reconsider the vote on the previous report? Actually, you know what? It's fine. Thanks.
Okay. Okay. So, I guess we can vote on referring report number 13. Is that right? Who moved it again? Do we need a mover? Yeah. So moved by Councillor Bly, seconded by Councillor Dominato. We don't have to go to the voting panel. Do we just all in favor? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Great. Number 13 passes, and I guess, do I have to read it out again? No? Okay. Great. Okay. So we'll now consider the referral report. No, that's done. Pardon? Bylaws, yes. We're in bylaws. Okay, we have, we can do this. Okay, we have 34 bylaws on the agenda for enactment. Please note bylaw 11 has been withdrawn. Also, bylaw 8 must be voted on and enacted before we can vote on bylaw 9. I recommend that we vote on bylaws 1 through 8, 10, and 12 through 35 first, then go back to vote on bylaw number 9. Now, before we do this, does anybody need to declare a conflict on any of the bylaws? Put myself on the queue. So now, clerk, do I have to see the chair on this one? No? Okay, I'm going to declare in an abundance of caution, a potential conflict on bylaw number 15, the commercial drive BIA one. And the reason for this is our family operates a retail store on Commercial Drive, and I have no idea, based on the lot numbers and what have you, if it's included. So in an abundance of caution, I will be recusing myself from the vote on number 15. Great. So would someone like to move the motion to adopt bylaws 1 through 8, 10, and 12 through 35? Great. Councillor Dominato, seconded by Councillor Carr. Council, is there any discussion? No? Okay, all those in favor say yay. All those opposed say nay. Great, the motion carries unanimously. Would someone like to move the motion to adopt bylaw number 9? Councillor Bly, seconded Councillor Boyle. Thank you, Councillor. Council, is there any discussion? Great. All those in favor say yay. All those opposed say nay. Great, the motion carries unanimously. The list of approved bylaws can be found on the city's website. Are there notices of council member motions for upcoming standing committee meetings? I would like to remind council that due to the amendment to the procedure bylaw, members' motions will be placed on standing committee agendas. Reminder to state the title of the motion and state and the date of the standing committee meeting on which you intend to move the motion, and be sure to send the title via email to the city clerk. And I have one. So do I have to see the chair on this one? No? Great, thank you. I have a motion for the June 28th meeting. The title of my motion is, this motion I'd like to co-submit with Councillor Joe. And the title of my motion is, or our motion is, naming the city's new Chinatown office. I would just like to add that there will be an informational press conference in advance of the upcoming official opening of our new Chinatown satellite office. Councillor Carr.
Yes, thanks, Mayor. I have 3 motions. They're all actually for UBCM, and they are for the council meeting of June 28th. The first one is decreasing food waste, increasing food security. The second one is increasing BC Hydro's feed-in tariff for renewable energy production. And the third is tackling BC's toxic drug health emergency.
Thank you very much. Councillor Dominato.
Thanks, Mayor. And I have 2 notices of motion for the June 28th Standing Committee meeting. They are both advocacy motions for UBCM. First one is UBCM resolution, a new fiscal framework for sustainable and predictable local government funding, co-submitted with Councillor Bly. And UBCM resolution, BC affordable net zero offsite wood housing industrial development.
Thank you very much. Councillor Boyle.
Thanks. I have a notice of motion also for the June 28th meeting, which I gave notice of a couple of weeks ago, but just naming again, and the title changed slightly. The motion is addressing ongoing inequities by improving social infrastructure and access to services across South Vancouver and Marpole neighborhoods.
Great. Thank you very much. Councillor Kirby-Young.
I have an item of new business.
Item of new business, yeah.
It's for.
Oh, we're not.
I thought we just finished notice of motions.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so before we go there, are there any other notice of council member motions? Nope. All right, Councillor Kirby-Young, please go ahead.
Awesome.
New business.
Awesome. Thank you, Mayor. I have a notice of motion for LOA and leave of absence requests for the following dates. June 28th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. for civic business. June 29th from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. for civic business. July 12th all day for civic business. And July 13th from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. for civic business.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bly.
I also have new business items. I have an LOA and also a motion, just confirming we're not voting one by one here on the separate motions. Yeah.
Oh, we have to vote in each one. I'm sorry. Okay, and do we need seconders for each one?
I'm happy to second.
Okay, Councillor Bly seconds Councillor Kirby-Young's motion. All in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Sorry about that. I'm going to get the hang of this. Okay, Councillor Bly, you're up.
Thanks very much. So I'll just move the LOA. So I do have an LOA for civic business for meetings July 11th and July 12th.
Great. Can we get a seconder, please? Great. Councillor Boyle, seconded. All in favor say aye. Great. All those opposed say nay. Great. The motion carries.
Thanks.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you. I'll just ask somebody to put my timer on, but I'll be very brief. So I'm bringing a motion forward under new business today that I hope council will consider. There is a deadline to have this move forward if council was to support before July 12th to enable this topic to be discussed at FCM at the September board meetings. And that date, as I mentioned, is if I said July 12th, I meant July 10th. So this motion itself is titled Building an Advocacy Case to Increase Government of Canada Support for Literacy Programs, and it will be submitted by it is being submitted by myself and co-submitted by Councillor Dominato. And the goal here with this motion is to support advocacy through the FCM work to ensure that literacy is advocated for at the federal government when it comes to the National Poverty Reduction Strategy. And right now, any funding for literacy programs is linked to employment programs. And many organizations, and actually previous councillor, Heather Deal, is working with an organization, national organization called Dakota, who is providing a lot of these literacy programs across the country. country. And literacy is an incredibly important piece of the puzzle when it comes to poverty reduction. Both digital literacy, language literacy, financial literacy, it covers all. And oftentimes, a deficit in literacy, the ability around literacy, will actually stop people from even walking through the doors of an employment agency. So by linking the funding to employment, it actually precludes many people from being able to gain employment. And we're talking about communities, both larger urban cities, but particularly smaller rural communities. So the hope here is that in the Committee of Community Safety and Crime Prevention at SCM, and also the Social Economic Development Committee, both that covered these topics, but not exclusive to those two committees, there could be a broader discussion and advocacy effort through the FCM to the federal government to enable funding here. So we're being an instigator, I would say, in this discussion, but very much at the national level. So would appreciate council support, and you all have the language that was sent through a little while ago. And that's it. Thanks.
Great. Can we please get a seconder? Great. And then is there any questions or comments? Councillor Dominato.
Mayor, I was just going to provide brief supporting comments to the motion. Simply to reiterate and put a finer point on this is we saw the impact of literacy in the K-12 sector when I was working there, and to see a greater focus at the national level, but also provincially on literacy will make a significant difference because you start to see this at an early age. And so really it's getting at prevention and early intervention. Councillor Bly alluded to the point that there are individuals where they're struggling with literacy, they won't connect with an employment center. But what we do see, we see it in children, we see it in youth, is when they're struggling with literacy, it impacts their self-esteem, it impacts their wellness. You tend to see anxiety, depression, and I think it's worth noting that a number of organizations that are focusing on advocacy across the country are making that direct connection between literacy and poverty, literacy and public safety considerations, homelessness. And so if we can get ahead of this, then we can address some of those other social issues that we see in our communities. And the other part of this is also digital literacy. The federal government has recently announced that they're going to commit significant funds around digital literacy because people are falling behind as technology changes, and just being able to decipher the type of information they're getting online. There's a lot of information, and being discriminatory about what that kind of information you're digesting. But I think it's fair to say that this is an important piece of work. 1 in 5 Canadians are struggling with literacy. And so happy to support this going forward to FCM and to be embedded in the work going forward there.
Thank you very much. Okay, seeing no other questions on comments, we'll bring it to a vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Great, the motion carries. Okay, so Councillor Klassen.
Thanks very much, Mayor. I just want to put in a leave of absence request for June 29th from 5 to 10 p.m. For civic and personal business.
Thank you very much. Councillor Meisner.
Thanks, Mayor.
Oh, sorry. Can we please get a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Meisner. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay. Okay, great. Thank you. It carries unanimously. Councillor Meisner.
Thanks, Mayor. Mine's an LOA as well for tomorrow from 2 to 3 p.m. for personal reasons.
Great, thank you. Can we please seconder? Thank you, Councillor Joe. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Great, the motion carries unanimously. Councillor Fry.
Thanks. A request for an LOA for July 12th and July 13th for civic business.
Awesome. Can we get a seconder? Great, thank you, Councillor Carr. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Great, the motion carries unanimously. Councillor Dominato.
Thanks, Mayor. I also have LOAs for under new business. The first is for June 20th, 5 p.m. onwards for personal business. June 27th, Council Reserve 5 p.m. onwards for personal business. June 29th, 5 p.m. onwards for civic and personal business. And then July 11th, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. for civic business, and July 25th, 9:30 to 12 noon for civic business.
Thank you. Can we get a seconder, please? Councillor Bly. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Great, passes unanimously. Councillor Boyle.
I also have a leave of absence request for June 29th from 5 p.m. onwards for personal business.
Thank you very much. Seconder, please. Thank you. Councillor Bly. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Great. Motion carries unanimously. Okay, so council, are there any inquiries or other matters? Oh, Councillor Bly.
Thanks very much. This inquiry is to the city manager, and it is related to the timing we're at now. So we were updated, and there was a public announcement by the provincial government related to the downtown east side back in March, with a number of targets being set for the end of June. And I'm curious if we can get a further memo or any insight that the city manager has at the moment around the 330 housing units. New units of housing, I should say. And also interested in any discussions that we are alive to related to complex care and the multidisciplinary approach to supporting folks in the downtown east side with complex needs.
Great, thanks, Councillor. Happy to work with our colleagues at BC Housing to pull together an update for you on that.
Okay, and beyond, if I may, I imagine some of the supports around, in my understanding of the document, I believe it was a 13-page report that the province put out, is there are a number of markers, maybe 6 or 7 of the different types of services that extend beyond housing in BC Housing. So any additional information from the Ministry of Health in terms of how we can be working together to ensure that some of those supports roll out in time with the timelines they've set would be great.
Yep, thanks. We'll get the holistic picture.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Thank you very much. Councillor Clausen.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to acknowledge the fact that on this Saturday, June 17th, we're having our first ever Vancouver Beautification Day. We've all felt the prevalence of vandalism and tagging that has been seen in so many communities across our city and became certainly more prevalent during COVID. And I think that having volunteers come out and support the effort to try and clean some of that up and beautify our city, I think is a really great initiative. I'd like to thank city staff for providing paint and paint supplies and helping us with logistics. I'd like to also thank a number of BIAs that are getting involved at this stage, Mount Pleasant, Strathcona, Hastings Village, and Collingwood, and as well a number of community policing centers in Collingwood and South Vancouver. And it's a small time commitment to get back to your city and wear clothes that you don't mind getting a little paint on. But this Saturday at 10 a.m., somewhat weather dependent. If the weather is really bad, we'll have to try and reschedule. But otherwise, I look forward to seeing you there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Dominato.
Thanks, Mayor. And through you, I have 2 questions to the city manager. And the first one is just recently we had some inquiries about the renaming of Trutch Street, and I appreciate staff got back to us and also to a number of residents. Is there any chance of getting a clear time frame on when that changeover is going to happen? I recognize there needs to be notification of the residents as well as coordination with Canada Post, but I know some were hoping it might happen for June, but I recognize that it's going to take a bit longer. Do we have a sense of how long that may be, or could we get a report back in a memo? Just
Yes, thanks, Councillor. We can. One of the variables there is also coordination with Musqueam. And that's the piece where we don't really have a firm timeline because we are, in some respects, relying on them, but working closely with them. But I'm happy to provide kind of an update on where we're at with our pieces of that and if there's any new information from Musqueam. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. And then the second question is just with respect to, I requested some additional information, just an update generally on how we're tracking around adding the additional mental health teams and mental health nurses to the city through VCH as well as the VPD officers. And I recognize that that's going to be done, I think you mentioned it, on a quarterly basis. Is it possible to have that update delivered publicly to council so that we can, because there is a lot of interest in these issues from a public standpoint about public safety, but also on the health and wellness side around concern for residents who may be struggling with mental illness or substance use disorders? And is there any chance of having that update done at a public council meeting or through a public memo? Or
yeah, certainly. Thanks. We'll pass that along to Vancouver Coastal Health and ask them to frame that in a manner that it can be shared publicly. So that's a great catch. If there's any information that they're not able to make public, we can report that separately.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor.
Great. Thank you very much. Councillor Meisner.
Thanks, Mayor. Mine is more just an acknowledgement of Italian Days, or Italian Day on the Drive on Sunday. Several of us councillors and yourself attended, and I just wanted to acknowledge all the hard work that went into putting on that fantastic event by the BIA, by the Italian Cultural Society Center, and all the other organizers that were involved. It was so nice to see thousands of people come out, enjoying the city on a beautiful day, sampling all the great food and music, and something we need lots more of in Vancouver, and that this council is happy to support. So just wanted to acknowledge what a great day that was on Sunday. So thanks to all the organizers and to everybody that came out.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And before we adjourn, please stick around because we have to do something very quickly. So with that, seeing no one else in the queue here, may we have a motion to adjourn? Great. Thank you. Seconded. Councillor Joe, thank you. All those in favor say yay. All those opposed say nay. Great, this meeting is adjourned, and we are going to start a new one, and it's going to be super quick. Okay, so good morning, and welcome to the special council meeting of June the 13th, 2023. This special council meeting is being held under sections 2.5A and 14.5 of the procedure bylaw for the purpose of convening a meeting which is closed to the public. Council members are reminded that in accordance with section 14.13 of the procedure bylaw, members must enable their video to confirm quorum. We acknowledge that once again we are holding this meeting on the unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsawwassen First Nations, and we want to thank them for their generosity and their hospitality. And I also want to acknowledge the incredible work that all of our team members do at the City of Vancouver. So roll call. Clerk, may we please have roll call?
Mayor Simmons in the chair, Councillor Carr. Councillor Kubiang. Councillor Dominato. Councillor Bly. Councillor Boyle. Councillor Fry. Councillor Montague. Councillor Klassen. Councillor Meisner.
Present.
And Councillor Joe.
Present.
You have quorum, Mayor Sim.
Great, thank you very much. There's only one item of business on today's agenda, a motion to meet in camera. Council is required to meet in camera later this week. The reasons and authority under the Vancouver Charter are listed in the agenda. Would someone like to move a motion to move into camera? Thank you, Councillor Bly. Maybe we have a seconder. Councillor Meisner, all in favor say yay. All those opposed say nay. Great, the motion carries. That concludes today's agenda. May we have a motion to adjourn? Great, Councillor Kirby-Young, seconded by Councillor Joe. All in favor, say yay. All those opposed say nay. Great, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much. Have a great lunch, everyone.